Hello friends, it is wonderful to have you with me again today. Today I've got another little presentation for you that I've put together, and it's a topic which I'm very, very passionate about. I've been interested in animals my whole life, and I even went to college for a very, very, very short time to study animals because I wanted to be an RSPCA inspector and help to save animals in need. But that didn't quite work out. But nevertheless, I still love nature, wildlife, and animals of all kinds. So today I thought I would bring to your attention the animals of Great Britain, where I'm from. And these are animals that are native to this part of the world, and also some which were introduced a long time ago, which have become sort of semi-native. And we're going to be just looking at the land animals, the animals that are on land, and I'll be doing birds and marine creatures in another video, but for today we're just going to be looking at land animals. So let's begin. We start off with the adder. Now I do apologise if anyone's got phobia of snakes. I should have put a warning on this video. My dad is Indiana Jones, I swear. He's got an awful fear of snakes. He doesn't like them whatsoever. So I apologise if anyone out there has got that phobia. So I'll be reading this little description for you, and I've also included some fun facts as well, so you can just see something interesting about the animals I'm talking about. And again, if you want to download this or follow along with the video, then I'll put a link in the description where you can download that. So, the adder is Britain's only venomous snake, found throughout mainland Britain, including some of the offshore islands, in a variety of open and man-made habitats. Once bitten, adder venom can kill prey in under 3 minutes before being swallowed whole. Despite their deadly bite, adders will always attempt to flee danger rather than confront it, and thankfully its bite is rarely fatal for humans. There have been 14 recorded human deaths from adder bites since 1876, and the last one being in 1975. And it's reported that there are only 50 to 100 human bites recorded a year on average, so there's not a lot really. And let's zoom in close to this guy here. He looks really mean, but brilliantly beautiful at the same time. He's got these black ridges going up his back, this lovely black stripe down the side of his head. you can also hear some little creatures on my roof at the studio here. It's quite fitting that you can hear wildlife in my videos, especially for this video. Anyway, we're getting distracted. Alright, so the fun fact. The adder's name comes from the result of a historical pronunciation error. The Old English nada became adder. And you'll remember in my World War I sayings video, we English are notorious for mispronouncing basically everything and shortening it down to something a little more friendly to our native tongue. But I don't see why nada became adder. What's so difficult about the N? They just dropped the N and went with the adder. Okay, so that's the adder. We do have a little additional information on the adder. So let's have a look at that. So it's native to the UK. Its length can get up to 60 centimeters, and the males are actually smaller than the females, and the babies are about 14 centimeters when they're born. The males have a black zigzag pattern on a white bluish background, and the females are a bit browner, and that same pattern is on a reddish background. They have that characteristic V shape on the head, as you can see here, and their underside is grey or black with pale spots. And where do they live? So they live on a wide range of lowland and upland, both dry and wet, as long as there are suitable basking areas such as sand, rocks or quarries, or even railway embankments. So you'll find these mostly at like the beach or anywhere that's sort of open and gets quite sunny and hot, because they can't regulate their temperature as they're reptiles. So they need somewhere nice and warm. They hibernate in the winter, normally underground on south-facing banks, free from flooding and frost. So the eggs hatch within the female's body, and they give birth to 6 to 20 live young, which are born in August. So they don't necessarily lay eggs. The eggs are contained within the snake's body, which is amazing, isn't it? So what do they eat? They eat frogs, toads, lizards, slow worms, small mammals, and also bird eggs. So they have a varied and varied diet. So what about their population? How many of these critters are slithering around? So their pre-breeding season numbers, that is expected or estimated to be 130,000. So let's have a look again at these guys. I think they're just actually really, really cute. I think he's got a lovely cute face. People with snake phobias like, are you crazy? Oh, this is a really striking image. Look at his beautiful eye. Reminds me of the Eye of Sauron, Lord of the Rings. So, that's the adder. Now we move on to one of my favourite little critters, and that's the badger. Well, the badger is a horribly misunderstood creature. And I come from, well, I don't come from, but my partner's family were very much into the country sports. So I kind of lived around that for a little while, and I was passionately against it. And they would go and cull the badgers because they would be classed as vermin, as most of these animals on here are classed as, unfortunately. But anyway, let's have a look at the badger and see why he's so misunderstood. So, the badger is the largest member of the mustelid family. I can never say that word right. Mustelid. And Britain's largest land carnivore. Badgers are highly social creatures and love spending time among their family in their network of extensive underground tunnels called setts. S-E-T-T-S. Badgers are very conscientious homeowners and will make sure that their bedding is replenished with fresh grass and leaves each day. That's so cute. There is also a purpose-built latrine pit that they use to go to the bathroom in order to keep the rest of their home clean and free from disease. Some badger homes are over 100 years old and are passed down to future generations, many having up to 40 entrances and many meters of tunnels. They are nocturnal and emerge from their setts at dusk and will forage all throughout the night for food. Luckily for them, their sense of smell is astonishing, up to 800 times better than a human's, so finding food in the dark is no problem. In the winter, though, they are much less active, but they do not hibernate like other animals. A lot of stigma surrounds badgers, like I mentioned to you just a moment ago, as they were thought to be responsible for bovine tuberculosis, a very serious disease that kills thousands of livestock each year. However, there is no evidence to suggest that this is true, but their population was drastically reduced due to illegal baiting and destruction of their setts. But in 1992, the Protection of Badgers Act made badger baiting and digging illegal. And in addition, it made it an offence to damage, destroy, or obstruct their setts. This protection has enabled the UK badger population to increase once again. I mean, how could you do anything to this guy? Look at him, he's just so adorable. Look at his tiny little eyes. Oh, don't you just want to kiss this mouth? He actually reminds me of my dog. This kind of fluffy arms here. Oh, he just looks so cute. So that's the badger. And the fun fact, this is a good one. Badgers comfort their young during thunderstorms. Isn't that just adorable? It makes them even more cuter. So what else can we learn about the badger? So it is native to Great Britain. So its size, its head body is about 75 centimetres and its tail is about 15 centimetres. It weighs roughly 8 to 9 kilos in the spring and 11 to 12 kilos in the autumn. So what do they look like? They have a thick set, round-backed body which is very, very powerful. The iconic black and white striped face and coarse grey body fur, which is black on their legs. Where do they live then? They tend to favour woodland, which is close to arable farmland. They prefer well-drained soil, and they often dig their sets under matted tree roots to provide stability to the soil. That's very clever. The nest chambers in the tunnels are lined with dry grass, bracken and straw. And they actually take their bedding to the entrance of their set in order for it to air dry in the sun and make it nice and fresh for the night when they're sleeping. I thought that's really, really cool. What about their young? So they have 1 litter a year, roughly 2 to 5 cubs per litter, and they're born January to March. And the mating season takes place over the summer. So what do they eat then? They eat mostly earthworms, which make up 50% of their diet. They also eat insects, bulbs, small mammals, blackberries, grain, carrion, and windfall fruit. What about their population then? So it's estimated that there are about 300,000 adults living in about 50,000 groups. However, 50,000 of them are killed each year on the roads, and 10,000 are still killed each year by illegal baiting. I've seen so many badgers on the road, so much so I think I've seen more dead badgers than I have live badgers. I think I've only ever seen 1 live badger in my whole life, and it was such a sight to behold. They are huge, bigger than what you expect. And look at this beautiful markings here on his face. Kind of reminds me of a panda in a weird sort of way. Alright, so that is the badger. So now we move on to another misunderstood creature, and that is the black rat. Now you'll be surprised to know, because I was surprised to know, that there are 2 different types of rat. There's the black rat and there's the brown rat. And actually the black rat is a lot less common than what you think, which we'll find out about in a minute. So the black rat is often mistaken for a brown rat, which is the larger of the 2 species. The brown rat often weighs over half a kilo and measures about 23 centimeters without the tail, and the black rat weighs half as much and is much shorter. The black rat has a pointed muzzle, large, almost hairless ears, and a more slender body, and a long, thin tail that is longer than its body. The black rat, also known as the ship rat, has a notorious history. I'm sure we all know why. Originally from India, it arrived in England with the Romans 2,000 years ago in ships and crates of cargo. Fleas on black rats brought the plague to Europe and the Middle Ages, and when they came with the last Crusaders returning from the Holy Land in 1348, killing over half the population at that time. Black rats live in packs of 20 to 60 and mainly eat plant matter, such as seeds and fruits. They are primarily nocturnal and very agile, climbing ropes and brickwork and gnawing their way into wooden buildings. They are also very good swimmers. Black rats are one of the rarest animals in Britain now, and their numbers are diminishing over the last 50 years because docklands or dockyards, which served as their last habitat, have been modernised and made more clean, I guess. So here is our cute little friend here, the black rat. And I used to actually have pet rats. Not a black rat, mind you, but domesticated rats, and they were amazing creatures. So smart, so intelligent, really cute, really friendly, and just excellent companions. But again, they are really, 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 really misunderstood. But he's a cute one, right? So, fun fact, their tails keep them cool. They control their body temperature by expanding and contracting the blood vessels in their tails. And that's what keeps them cool. I mean, look at that. That's just amazing, isn't it? Just this appendage here that's responsible for the heating and the cooling, amongst other things. So what else can we learn about the black rat? Oh, this picture is amazing. We'll look at that in a second. So, they are not a native species. They were introduced back in the 12th century. Their size, like we said, they're smaller than the brown rat. They grow up to 12 to 14 centimetres in length, but their tail is significantly longer at 14 to 26 centimetres. They are slightly built, so a little bit sort of thinner, with a long pointed face and large, almost hairless ears. The coat colour ranges from grey-brown to dark black, which of course they'll get confused with a black rat. But it's the ears that give them away. Their feet are whitish or pink. So where do they live then? So at present, they're largely confined to main ports and coastal towns, where they forage inside warehouses and disused buildings, making it easy to control their numbers. Because obviously they breed very, very quickly, which we'll look at right now. So they breed between April and November, and females can produce up to 5 litters a year, containing 5 to 8 pups, as the young are called. And the young are sexually mature at 5 weeks old, so if the population isn't controlled, then they will breed and breed and breed and breed and breed. What about the nest then? They build it above the ground, in cavity walls, in between rafters, or even in hollow trees. The more I read this, the more I think we have a black rat in my studio, because there's something that's nibbled the soundproofing on the ceiling and on the walls, and I can hear something scuttling now and then, and it all ticks the boxes of a black rat. Because I rent the studio right out in the middle of nowhere on a farm, so it kind of makes sense that we've got a black rat. Diet. Let's have a look at what they eat. They're actually mainly vegetarian, and they eat seeds, fruit, and grain. Food is not stored, but taken to a safe place to be consumed. So you'll be surprised to know that their population is only 1,300. That's it. You'd kind of think that there would be like 100,000 or more, but no. These little guys, they are not doing too good, bless them. But the brown rat, on the other hand, that's the ones that you see in cities and, places that are quite dirty. But this is the black rat. So now we move on to more elegant creatures. And we're going to have a look at the fallow deer. Now in the UK we have so many different species of deer. I haven't included all of them, but I've just included like the most common ones, the ones that you may recognize more than others. And you probably recognize this patterning thing here. So, what can we learn about the fallow deer? Fallow deer were first thought to be brought to England by the Romans, but the main introduction was by the Normans in the 11th century for ornamental and hunting purposes. It is a docile, non-territorial herding deer that thrives in parklands, making it ideal for semi-domestication. Feral deer, so escapees from parks, are now common in southern England, increasing in number and slowly in distribution. They are now found throughout much of England and parts of Wales, some in Scotland and Northern Ireland. Herds may number 100 if conditions are right, and there are now more deer in South East today than there were 500 years ago in the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. Fallow deer have palmate, so palm-like, antlers, a wider and flatter spread, with less distinct tines than the red deer, which we'll look at in a minute. So let's have a look at these guys here. I love their little faces. He's a very proud boy, isn't he? Look at his amazing antlers here. Aren't they just so impressive? And you can see how it looks like a palm here with these fingers. Amazing. So what about the fun fact? So fallow deer will spend most of the year in single-sex herds, only coming together in the autumn for the annual rut. So the rut is the mating season. And when I was in Scotland not long ago, it was the start of the rut, and we literally had these big, huge deer running past our little caravan that we rented, and it was thrilling and scary all at the same time, and they make this amazing sound. Really amazing. So it's just something wonderful to see. So what else can we learn about the fallow deer? Just correct me if I'm wrong, but is Bambi a fallow deer? This little guy certainly looks very Bambi-ish. So, they're not a native species like we learnt. They were introduced into the country in the 11th century. So what about their size? Their body size is the same as a female sheep, but they're a lot taller and they have long, thin legs. Males, called bucks, have flattened palmate antlers, palm-like antlers, but the females, the does, do not. They have a bright chestnut coat with spots in the summer, and they are drab grey or brown in the winter. I like that description, drab grey. It's not light grey, it's not dark grey, it's drab grey. So they live semi-domesticated in many parks and forests throughout the UK. think there is actually a deer park about an hour away from me. I haven't actually been, but I'd really like to go. So the fawns, the babies, are born in May or June after 8 months gestation, and they weigh about 4.5 kilos, so about the size of an adult cat. And they are dappled to match their background and lie hidden in the undergrowth for the first few weeks of their life while their mother goes off to graze. Their mother returns every few hours to suckle the fawn, feed it. So they have a diet that's purely vegetarian: grass, young shoots, leaves, bark, heather, sweet chestnuts, acorns and cereals. Their population pre-breeding is estimated to be about 100,000. So that is the fallow deer. And now we move on to one of my favourite animals, and that is the red fox. Again, another creature that is horrendously misunderstood, horrendously prejudiced against. It's really sad, these poor foxes, what they've had to go through and what they go through still now. But I just love seeing a fox. I see them sometimes when I come into work, come into the studio, in the mornings when they're going back to their dens, or sometimes when they're still out hunting. And they are just magnificent creatures, so versatile and just amazing. So, and they kind of remind me of me because in this first sentence, the fox is found in almost every habitat where food is plentiful, due to its remarkable ability to adapt to its surroundings. It is willing to eat almost anything, and because of this has become particularly successful at surviving alongside man in farmland and urban areas, both of them. Despite their feral nature, many people actually keep pet foxes or semi-domesticated wild ones by feeding them in their gardens. Where my grandparents live, one of the ladies down the road, the lovely old lady, used to feed the fox that used to come into our garden, and we used to see it just sitting there waiting to be fed, and some of the residents got really upset about it. But my grandparents were really for it, and they encouraged her to keep feeding it, so that was really nice. A female fox is called a vixen, and a male fox is called a dog fox or a tod. And baby foxes are called pups, kits or cubs. A group of foxes is called a skulk or a leash. The life expectancy of the fox is very short. 12 to 18 months in urban areas, because 58% are killed on roads, and rarely they get beyond 3 years in rural areas. In addition, foxes are frequently hunted and destroyed by farmers or those considering it a sport to kill them. However, in 2004, a law was enacted in England and Wales to ban fox hunting, an activity in which hunters would ride on horses following a number of dogs who would pursue the exhausted fox before ripping the animal apart. However, hunters can still hunt and kill foxes by other means, legally. For example, lamping, which is a form of pest control involving the shooting of foxes at night with the aid of powerful lights. And remember, I told you about my partner's family? They used to do that, and me and my partner spent so many years saying how wrong it was and how they should stop doing it. Thankfully, after maybe 10 years, they stopped and they realised how cruel it was. So we won, hooray! Alright, let's take a look at this handsome chap here. Look at this magnificent creature. He's definitely got his eye on something here. He's ready to pounce. He has this such a smooth body. You can't see the tail here, but it's really big and bushy. So beautiful. So, fun fact. Foxes belong to the dog family, but they're more like cats than dogs. They are able to climb trees and are the only type of dog capable of retracting their claws like cats. So, the fox, I'm going to say, is a cat dog. So what else can we learn about the red fox? Oh, it's so beautiful. So, they are a native species. The head body is 62 to 72 centimeters, and the tail is 39 to 41 centimeters. Females are slightly smaller than males. The males weigh 6.7 kilos, and the females weigh 5.4 kilos. Their coat varies in colour. Normally it's this typical reddish colour, but can also be orange or yellow with a dark stripe down the back. Their underside is white, grey or like a slate colour, but their legs or limbs are commonly black. The tip of the tail, known as the brush, is usually white. They live almost everywhere, from sea cliffs, sand dunes, salt marshes, peat bogs, high mountains, woodland, and particularly they are abundant in urban areas where there's a lot of food, a lot of rubbish laying around just to be picked through. So the babies, they have 1 litter a year, normally in March, and 4 to 5 cubs are born underground in an earth. This is either dug by the fox in the hillocks or banks, and they may occupy a disused badger set or a large rabbit burrow. So they're very ingenious creatures looking for things already existing. Work smarter, not harder, right? So their diets, they pretty much eat everything like we know. They eat field voles, birds, rabbits, insects, earthworms, grasshoppers, beetles, blackberries, plums, carrion, and anything else that they can find in bins. And all the surplus food that they find that they can't eat right away is buried. So their population is estimated to be 258,000 pre-breeding. But like we said, they don't live very long, so which is a bit sad really. And look at this handsome chap. He's got beautiful eyes. They're very, very cat-like. Big, huge ears. Like that. So that's the red fox. So, grey squirrels were introduced to England from North America between 1876 and 1910. Within 100 years, they had completely replaced the native red squirrel in all but northernmost parts of the country, the Isle of Wight, and Brownsea Island of the south coast. This is mainly because of their ability to utilize more of the available food and also of their transmission of the deadly parapox virus, which is deadly to the red squirrel. It is also illegal to release grey squirrels into the wild under Section 14 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981, as they are classed as an invasive species. So if you were to trap or find an injured grey squirrel, you should take it to your vet or an RSPCA centre to dispose of it humanely. It's very sad. That upsets me so much because I understand why. But every creature deserves to live, right? I don't know. We won't go into that, but their food consists of buds and shoots, nuts, seeds, and fungi. They will hoard food by burying it, but they'll often forget where they have buried it. Despite their negative impact on the red squirrel population, they actually remain very, very popular with the public, especially in urban areas where they are among the most visible wild mammal. And that's very true. There are so many squirrels everywhere where I live, in the trees, squashed on the road, literally everywhere. If you're going out walking somewhere, you are bound to see a squirrel running around. And my most treasured memory of a grey squirrel was when I was working with my dad many, many, many years ago. We were working at this big, huge house, and they had this huge, huge tree, and there was like everything living in it. And one day, literally, it was about, I'm not even exaggerating, 2 or 3 feet in front of me. I had seen something in the corner of my eye, and I was thinking, what is that? When I turned over to look, there was a mama squirrel with a tiny, tiny little baby in her mouth. And she was running from, I don't know where she was running from, but she was running to the tree with her babies in her mouth. So she was transporting her little tiny pink babies from one place to the safety of this big tree. And it was the most amazing thing I ever saw, because she literally couldn't care less that we were there. Like, there were 3 of us, and we just stood watching this squirrel like 3 foot away from us, transporting her tiny little babies to this tree. It's an amazing memory. So, what else can we learn about the grey squirrel? So, like we know, they're not a native species. They were introduced from North America in the 19th century. The head body is roughly 23 to 30 centimeters. The tail is 15 to 25 centimeters. They weigh roughly 300 to 700 grams. They are larger and heavier than the red squirrel. So what do they look like? So they have a grey coat, which actually contains a lot of brown hairs, which gives them that reddish grey appearance. But the difference between the grey squirrel and the red squirrel is that they have no tufts on the ears, like the red squirrel. It has lovely big ears with tufts on them. Sometimes they can be albino or melanistic, so completely black, which is fascinating. I've never seen either of those, albino or melanistic. They live in deciduous woodlands, urban parks, and gardens. They have 2 litters a year, 3 to 5 babies who are naked, blind, and young. The ones that I saw were a little bit older, so they had their fur and they weren't blind. They They're literally about like this big. It's so cute. And they become sexually mature when they're about a year old. The young of a litter spend their first winter together in one nest after being ejected by their parents. So the squirrels that I saw probably were just coming up to that. I think that's really cute that they all huddle together after being kicked out by mum and dad. So their nests are called drays, and they are built in the spring by both the males and the females. They eat buds and shoots of all trees, nuts, seeds, fruit, insects, and occasionally bird eggs. They sit up to feed and they eat the food from their hands. They will bury the food when it's plentiful, but they never return to it sometimes because they forget where it is. Their population is estimated to be between 2 to 6 million, and that is a massive amount of squirrels. No wonder we see them all the time. Oh, I love his hands. So fluffy and cute. He's got this lovely, cute little face. He's obviously been digging because he's got all these little bits around his face here. Dirt. So that's the grey squirrel. Now we move on to an equally cute creature, and that is the harvest mouse, one of the smallest animals that we have. Oh wait, did we do the fun fact? Oh, we forgot the fun fact, guys, about the squirrel. Fun fact about the squirrel is that squirrels can swim. I've never seen a swimming squirrel before. I bet that's exciting. Okay, sorry about that. So, harvest mouse, one of the smallest in the country, the smallest animals. So the harvest mouse is the smallest and cutest rodent in Europe, weighing just 6 grams. The harvest mouse, being native to Europe and Asia, means it's also often called the Eurasian mouse. It is found from North Yorkshire region of England right across most of Europe and through Asia to the Orient. They have a remarkable ability to sense vibrations through the soles of their feet, so they can sense larger animals or predators in the vicinity by feeling vibrations pass through the ground, up the plant on which the mouse is feeding, and into the mouse's hands. Unlike other rodents, harvest mice are not considered pests, as they don't eat enough to cause damage to crops, and for this reason, farmers don't mind having them. They can actually also help farmers destroy pests by eating pest insects. Harvest mice make great pets as they are easy to keep in a healthy condition, but they may not be your touchy-feely pets like cats and dogs or rats. So look at this guy. Oh my goodness. And you know he is tiny. He is tiny. Big black button eyes and these just amazing hands, paws, however you want to call them. These little sharp claws there. Let's look at the fun fact. The harvest mouse is the only British animal with a truly prehensile tail that can be used as a 5th limb. How amazing is that? So their tail can actually help them move and grip and just as like an arm would. That's amazing. So what else can we learn about the harvest mouse? Let's just look at this first. You can't tell me that this isn't cute. Look at him just hanging out between 2 pieces of barley or whatever this crop is. It's just chilling, just having origin is a little bit confused because it may very well be native, but it could have been introduced from continental Europe. So the verdict's out on that one. Its size, again, really, really small, 5 to 7 centimeters in length, and the tail is 6 centimeters. They are golden brown and white in parts clearly separated. They have a prehensile tail and they have a scaly, ringed and thinly haired tail. Kind of a little bit like a rat, I guess. So they move about as the seasons change. They much prefer tall vegetation, including reed beds, hedgerows, roadside verges, gardens, as well as cereal sown fields. They have several litters a year. 2 to 7 babies are born. But this is a very sad fact. 99% of adult mice do not survive the winter. That is so sad. That is a lot. That's almost all of them. So their nests, the non-breeding nests, are constructed of loosely woven shredded grass at the bottom of plant stems, under rocks, or in an abandoned bird's nest. And in the summer, the breeding nests are the size of an orange, very well constructed, compact balls of grass or corn blades interwoven among shrubs or stalks, often standing corn lined with thistledown. Sounds cozy. They eat wheat, barley, oats, seeds, shoots, flies, caterpillars, and other insects. So their population is estimated post-breeding season to be 1.4 million. So 1,425,000. So they are very numerous. But that's because the farmers don't mind having them around. So next we have the hedgehog. A wonderful, wonderful creature, so unique. And around about this time, I'm filming this in November, you see a lot of these guys roaming around, trying to get warm for the winter. Look at his face. Oh, so cute. Oh, beautiful. So, hedgehogs are native to mainland Britain, but are also found throughout northern and western Europe. Famous for their long protective spikes, they roll into a ball when threatened to protect themselves against predators. Their biggest enemy, apart from man, is the badger, and most are actually immune to snake venom. So if this guy was bitten by an adder, he'd be okay. They can climb, swim, and sprint a surprisingly fast 6 miles an hour. Hedgehogs hibernate alone from November to April under a supporting structure such as a shed, wood piles, brambles, or bonfire heaps, which makes checking your annual bonfire for hedgehogs very, very, very important, as many are killed in lit bonfires during this time of the year. For many people who are not really sure why we have bonfires in November, we light bonfires for Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Bonfire Night, which celebrates the failed attempt of the assassination of the king back in the, I can't remember what century it was, but I've actually started to plan the origins of Bonfire Night, Guy Fawkes Night, but it's very, very complicated, and I want to make sure I provide you with as much information as possible on that topic, because there's a lot that happened to make it the celebration it is today. But anyway, I digress. Hedgehogs' favourite food are slugs and worms, and they can eat more than 40 slugs a night. Oh, that's one animal or creature that I can't stand is slugs. They make me feel really sick. However, hedgehog numbers are dramatically decreasing due to eating more and more slugs, which have been tainted with poisonous slug repellent. Keeping a hedgehog as a pet has become very popular. Most are bred with smooth spines on their coat, similar to the bristles of a brush. Owners like them because they are quiet, active and entertaining, and make great companion pets. But as nocturnal animals, they require feeding and care in the evening hours. My sister actually had a pet hedgehog. They don't live an awful long time, probably about the same time as like a domesticated rabbit or something like that. But yes, you can keep hedgehogs as a pet. I wouldn't recommend just plucking one off the street though, because of disease and all sorts of bad things. But yes, you can actually buy a proper bred for companionship hedgehog. So, fun fact. Throughout most of the Middle Ages, hedgehogs in English were called urchins. This is where sea urchin originated. Hedgehog, which literally means an animal that looks like a pig and lives in your hedge, doesn't come into use until the 15th century. So that's really, really interesting. Urchin, obviously we know that they are spiked creatures. Sea urchin, so sea hedgehog. That's amazing. So what else can we learn about the hedgehog? Oh my goodness. You can actually see his little teeth here. He's gorgeous, such a happy face. So they are native, like we found out. Their length is 23 centimetres plus a 4 centimetre tail, and they can weigh up to 2 kilos. The male is known as a boar and is slightly larger than the female, known as a sow. The whole upper part of the head and body is covered with 5,000 cream, brown and white banded spines, which are 20 centimetres long, which are modified hairs. The underparts are covered by coarse grey-brown fur, forming long skirts along the flanks. So, where do they live? They live in parks, gardens, farmland, but they prefer woodland edges, hedgerows and suburban gardens where food is plentiful. They have 2 litters a year, 4 to 7 babies. They are pale coloured soft spines of the babies appear hours after birth and take 3 weeks to harden. They become independent of their mother at 4 to 6 weeks. The gestation period, well, how long the hedgehog is pregnant for, is 34 days. And the average life expectancy is 2 to 3 years in the wild. A little bit longer for domesticated hedgehogs. So the nest is built of moss and leaves under vegetation or in banks. They eat beetles, caterpillars and other insects, slugs mostly, worms, frogs, birds' eggs, young birds and mammals. Their population is estimated to be 1 million, but since the 1990s, their population has declined by 50%, mostly due to loss of habitat and casualties on the road, and also eating poisoned slugs, which is really, really sad. Oh, and bonfires as well. So that is the hedgehog. Next, we have a very interesting little guy here, type of a deer. And this guy is known as a muntjac. It's really, really funny because my mother-in-law can never pronounce this word. I suppose it is quite difficult. Muntjac. And there is actually a little family living near my studio, and sometimes I see them in the banks by the road, just hopping over to the big lakes where I work. So the muntjac is one of the oldest, so at least 15 to 13 million years old. So it's the oldest and smallest deers on the planet. It was introduced into Britain from China in the 1900s, but many escaped from their private estates, and they are now a well-established group of animals in southern England, where they live in woodland and dense scrubland. They are crepuscular, so they are active at dawn and dusk. And because of this, many are killed each year on the road when the light is a little bit difficult to see them. We all know that kind of weird twilighty kind of light. The males, known as bucks, have a short, backwards curving antlers, which are shed in May or June and regrow to full size by October or November, the rut that we spoke about with the other deer. These are not used as weapons, but instead their elongated, protruding tusk-like teeth of the male can be used for sparring other males. This picture doesn't show it, but they have like little tusks coming out here. Females have miniature bony structures instead of antlers on their heads. Muntjacs have excellent eyesight and sense of hearing, and these senses are mainly used for the detection of predators. A muntjac can survive up to 17 years in the wild, though they are mainly solitary animals, but they can be seen in family groups. And they do look so very unique. So you have the antlers here. This one's been chopped off or broken off. They've got these beautiful markings on their head here, and like I say, little tusks come out here. So what's the fun fact? Muntjacs come from China. That's where they originated from. So look at here, beautiful, beautiful, amazing atmosphere. So they originated from China. They grow up to 90 centimeters in length, so are kind of similar size to a fox, but of course taller and thinner legs. They are glossy red-brown in their summer coat with a white rump. The male has short, backwardly curling antlers which grow up to 10 centimeters long, but the female doesn't have antlers. The upper canines of the male are elongated, forming tusks which protrude from the lips, and in territorial fights are used as weapons. They live in woodland, scrub, undisturbed gardens, but they can cause considerable damage. I've never seen one in my garden. We live a little bit in a built-up area, so you probably wouldn't see them. But where I used to live, back in the countryside, we used to see them all the time. You would always see a muntjac in your garden, sort of like dusk time, where it was just getting dark, and you could just see one on the horizon, just off in the fields. So they don't actually have a fixed breeding season, but the fawn can actually have babies every 7 months. They live on a diet of shrubs, trees, and they also eat fruit too. Their population is estimated at 52,000. They live mostly in England. So that's the beautiful muntjac. Next, we have the otter, and this is a really beautiful otter. This one is actually one of my pictures that I took at the zoo. And they have this beautiful fur, water repellent fur, this cute face. So the otter is a large member of the weasel family with an amphibious lifestyle. In the wild, they are elusive, secretive animals living in undisturbed rivers, streams, and estuaries. In the early 1960s, they were on the verge of extinction due to river pollution, habitat loss, and hunting. Now, with full legal protection, cleaner rivers, and managed habitat numbers are rising again. The male otter is called a dog, and a female a bitch. A baby is known as a pup. A group of otters out of water is known as a romp, and a group in water is known as a raft. That's amazing. They have large lungs and can stay submerged underwater for 4 minutes, often swimming 400 meters before resurfacing. They can reach speeds of 12 kilometers an hour underwater and can even outrun man on land. Otters use their dung, known as spraint, to communicate with other otters. Spraint scents can vary, but often are relatively pleasant. One expert described them as not dissimilar to jasmine tea. So their poo smells like jasmine tea. Scientists suspect otters may even be able to determine the sex, age, and reproductive status of the spraint dropper from just a quick whiff. That's some skill. So what about the fun fact? Otters can eat 20 to 33% of their body weight of food each day. That's a lot of food. I've never actually seen an otter in the wild. I've seen a dolphin in the wild, but in England, but I've never seen an otter. I suppose like it says, they're very secretive and live in areas that are least populated by man. So what else can we find out? This is a little baby otter. He just looks so surprised. Alright, so the otter is native to the UK. Their head body is 60 to 120 centimetres and their tail measures 40 to 45 centimetres. They have brown fur, often pale on the underside, and a long, slender, streamlined body. Small ears, a long, thick tail, and webbed feet. Their eyes and nostrils are high on its head, so that it can see and breathe when the rest of its body is submerged. The small ears have valves which close against water pressure. They are mostly found on coasts and estuaries and in freshwater habitats with suitable cover. 3 cubs can be born at any time of the year, but usually they're born in early spring after 63 days gestation. They are born blind for 35 days and are suckled for 6 months. They do not actually go into the water until they are at least 2 to 3 months old, and they actually fear the water initially, and sometimes they have to be pushed in by the mum who cares for them alone. We've all kind of been there when we're trying to learn how to swim, right? Sometimes you just have to jump in and hope for the best. So the nests are known as holts and are lined with grass. And usually they are made in the stream banks with an underwater entrance. They live on a diet of fish, eels, mollusks, crustaceans. Also they eat rabbits, frogs, ducks, moorhens and snakes. And they actually take their prey onto the land to eat it, rather than the sea otters, which eat as they're floating about. So their population pre-breeding is estimated to be only 10,300, but their population numbers are slowly increasing. So, one of the most iconic animals that we have, and you can see these guys pretty much anywhere, even in really heavily populated areas. The most common in obviously more rural areas, but they get everywhere. So, what can we learn about the rabbit? So the rabbit is a native animal to Great Britain. They were originally from Spain and southwest France, and they were actually brought into England in the 12th century AD by the Normans, and they were actually kept in captivity as a sort of source of meat and fur. But of course, like anything, life finds a way, and many escaped into the wild and eventually became so common that farming them and keeping them in captivity was rather pointless. Rabbits are able to become pregnant as early as 4 months of age, and a female rabbit is fertile for pretty much every single day of the year, bar about 3 days a month. So they can pretty much breed all the time. So once they are pregnant, a mother rabbit is expectant for about 32 days, the gestation period, and on average she will have a litter of about 6 babies. After birth, the mother can become pregnant almost immediately, and this means that, in theory, a female could have a litter every month of the year, hence the expression breeding like rabbits. In the 1950s, the disease myxomatosis was introduced to curb the numbers of rabbits, and the rabbit almost became extinct because the myxomatosis disease was too good, it did too good of a job. But once again, numbers have shot up, and it is a common animal of the countryside once more. The male is called a buck and a female a doe. The main predators of rabbits are the stoat and the fox, although young animals also fall victim to birds of prey and also weasels. Also, it's good to note that lots are killed on the roads, which is a horrible, horrible shame. So, fun fact is that rabbits eat their own poo. Rabbits produce 2 kinds of poo. One is hard and inedible, and the other is soft and made up of undigested food. Rabbits eat the second kind of droppings to gain nutrients from it. That's quite disgusting, but resourceful, I would say. So what else can we learn about the rabbit? So like we found out, it's not a native species. It was introduced from Spain and France in the 12th century AD. its length, it can grow up to 40 to 45 centimeters, and its ears are 8.5 centimeters. They have compact bodies with long hind legs. They have grey-brown fur with white underparts and a short white tail. They are absolutely abundant in grasslands areas where the soil allows them to make extensive, well-trained burrows, but also where there are hedges and patches of woodland to give shelter and cover from foxes. They have 4 to 8 broods, so like litters, they are known as broods, of 3 to 9 young, and the young are known as kittens. And they are pregnant for 28 to 30 days. The young are self-supporting in 1 month, but 90% of new babies actually die in their first year. They live on mainly grass, but also vegetable matter. They gnaw at tree bark in the winter months, and they re-swallow up to 90% of their poo to make their food more effective in a process that's known as refection. So that's the process of eating one's own poo. So their population pre-breeding is estimated to be 40 million. That is a lot of rabbits. So that's the Charlie rabbit. So now we move on to another deer. You remember that we have looked at the fallow deer, the Bambi deer. We've also looked at the quite exotic muntjac deer. This deer is one of the most iconic deers. You may have seen it on like postcards, or you may even have seen them in the wild if you have travelled up to like the northern parts of the United Kingdom. And this is the red deer, one of the largest deers that we have. And I think this is the one I told you a story about when I went to Scotland recently, about deers running around because they wanted to find girlfriends. I think it was a juvenile red deer because it was massive. So, red deer are Britain's largest native land mammal, and together with the roe deer, are the only native deer species. All the other deer species have been introduced. The male red deer is called a stag, and a female is called a hind, and a baby red deer is called a calf or a fawn. Male red deer grow very impressive antlers, which are made of a type of dense and very solid bone. Whilst growing, they are covered with a hairy skin called velvet, which is shed when the antlers have reached their full size. Normally this is around October when the annual mating season starts, known as the rut. They use these powerful antlers to fight other males for dominance over the females. Once the 3 weeks of the rut ends, the antlers are shed and new ones immediately begin growing, ready for the next mating season. And actually these antlers don't go to waste. I actually have a deer antler at home because most of the farmlands and the estates that keep deer actually sell the antlers that fall naturally to the animal pet food industry. My dog has an antler that she chews on, and it's really good for her teeth. It's very natural. No animal was harmed in making it. And yeah, it's really good for puppies and dogs that like to chew. But anyway, I've digressed again. So, where were we? Yes. Red deer are ruminant animals, which means that they regurgitate their food and remasticate so chew it, again to aid digestion. This is also known as chewing the cud. You can see a red deer normally in the early mornings and late evenings, as they are inactive during the day and middle of the night when they spend most of their time chewing their cud. So let's have a look at the fun fact. So because red deer are so ancient, they are widely depicted in cave art found throughout European caves, with some of the artwork dating from as early as 40,000 years ago. That's very impressive. So this is a male. Very, very impressive. Look at his big horns, antlers. He is beautiful. So what else can we learn? We know that they are native. The male stag, its head and body together, is 210 centimeters. The height at the shoulder is 120 centimeters, so they are pretty massive. The female, the hind, height at the shoulder is about 107 centimeters, so about a meter. So the males grow branching antlers, and they have a long neck and long, thick hair in the winter. I suppose they would need that huge neck to keep such heavy antlers up. The female is smaller and lightly built, of course, without the antlers. A stag reaches full size in 6 to 7 years. So they live essentially in the forests, but they are found in the UK on the moorlands of Scotland and also in Devon. That's where they're most prominent. So the female is pregnant for 9 months, and only a single calf is born in May or June, and it lies hidden in the undergrowth, well camouflaged during the day for about a week. And then, after the week is up, it will join the herd. It eats majority grass, young heather shoots, moss, young leaves, shoots of trees, and in the winter they will actually strip the bark from the trees. Their population is estimated to be around 500,000, but you'll only see these guys up north. I'm sure it's a juvenile red deer that I saw running past my caravan on holiday. And they make such an impressive noise. If you Google red deer mating call, it's kind of a mix between a cow and, like, I can't even describe it. It's such a deep and profound sound that kind of goes right into your soul, and it's haunting, I would say, is a really good description for it. So if you get a chance to Google red deer mating sound, then it's quite something. So now we move on to another cute little fella, and this guy is a stoat. And these guys get confused with weasels and other sorts of creatures, ferrets as well, but they are a little bit different. They are a member of the weasel family, but they're a little bit different to a weasel. They're actually found throughout mainland Britain in a variety of different habitats. A male stoat is called a dog, a hob, or a jack, while a female is called a gill. The collective noun for stoats is either a gang or a pack. Stoats live in territories and occupy multiple dens that are often the home of past prey, and these can be hollows, nests, burrows, or other small sheltered areas. So, for instance, like rabbit warrens or something like that. Stoats are very bold and fearless creatures. They're also very agile, and they are able to climb well. And they are able to also take down young birds in nests. They are also really good swimmers, capable of crossing large rivers. Their primary food source is rabbit, despite being many times its own weight. The number of stoats in the wild is usually linked to rabbit population, but in recent years their numbers have declined as they are still heavily persecuted by gamekeepers protecting their game birds. Stoats are usually reddish-brown in colour, but stoats that live in the north change their fur colour to white to help blend in with the snowy landscape. And I've actually seen a video of my father-in-law. He was working one day in the countryside and he saw a stoat stalk a rabbit, and he managed to actually get it on film. And you see this stoat kind of working its way around this like outhouse building and actually catch the rabbit like so quick. It's unbelievable. And this rabbit is literally the same size as the stoat and must weigh so much more than that. But they are really good hunters. Very agile. So, fun fact, the stoat will mesmerize their prey, such as rabbits, by dancing. Sometimes this is called the weasel war dance. So the stoat will dance for the rabbit, and the rabbit will probably think, what the hell is going on? And like stay really still, and that's when the stoat strikes. I'll try that one next time. Look at this guy, he's so beautiful. So the stoat is a native species. The males grow 69 centimeters in length, plus the tail at 11 centimeters. Females are 26 centimeters, plus their tail at 9 centimeters. They are about the same size as a small ferret. Their body and neck are cylindrical and long, as we can see here. Very long neck. They have little short legs, brown fur on the back, and creamy white fur on the underparts, and a black tail tip. And like we said, in the north, they change their colour of their fur to white to help blend in with the background. So they live in a wide range of habitats as long as there is suitable food there. This can range from lowland forests to upland moors and even in towns. I've never seen one in the town though. So mating occurs in May and June, followed by a delayed implantation. So the pregnancy doesn't actually happen right away, it's delayed. The births occur in April to May of the next year, producing the females produce one litter, and it's normally 5 to 12 babies. So they nest in grass and leaves, and also in hollow trunks, molehills, walls, banks or thickets. They have a purely carnivorous diet, including voles, mice, rats, rabbits, hares and birds. Pre-breeding season, their population is estimated to be 462,000, which is quite a good amount. So that is the stoat. Next, we move on to this guy, who is a water vole. He's just a potato, isn't he? He's just so round and fluffy. He's so happy. And these guys are really interesting. So you may be familiar with the character Ratty from The Wind in the Willows. Well, you'd be surprised because he wasn't actually a rat, but he was actually a water vole. But these guys are one of the most endangered mammal species in the UK. Nearly 90% have disappeared in the last 7 years, mainly due to habitat loss and basically being eaten by the American mink. They are semi-aquatic and they have flaps of skin over their ears to keep the water out when swimming. And when they're threatened by a predator, such as mink, otters, stoats, weasels, brown rats, domesticated cats, pikes, herons and barn owls, pretty much so many predators, they will actually kick up a screen of mud and attempt to escape. So, fun fact, water voles have to eat 80% of their body weight, which is 60 to 360 grams a day to survive. That's a lot of food. Wow, poor guys. So what else can we learn about the water vole? Look at these beautiful hands here with these really sharp claws. You always look so surprised. So, they are a native species to the UK. Their body is 16.5 to 25.5 centimetres, plus their tail at 12 to 15 centimetres. They're about the same size as a brown rat. They have a rich brown coat, which is slightly reddish on the back and greyish ochre on the underparts. They have a blunt nose and small ears, which are almost hidden in their fur. They have a lightly haired tail and oily skin. It has a prominent, bright orange incisor teeth, which you can kind of see here. So they dig burrows, mostly in densely vegetated banks of rivers, streams, ditches and dikes, usually with low water flow. They breed in April to September, and 2 to 4 litters are produced each year with 3 to 7 young. The females are pregnant for about 21 days. Their nests are usually built underground and consist of finely shredded grass or reeds. They're predominantly herbivores and they basically eat any vegetation growing at the water's edge. Their population is estimated to be 875,000. So that is the very cute water vole. So now we move on to the wildcat. And these guys are really, really rare. You can see that this guy kind of looks like a domesticated cat, right? But there's a little couple of differences. He's a lot bigger, he's a lot meaner, he has a bigger, fluffier tail. So, since the extinction of the lynx, so that happened roughly around 450 to 600 AD, the Scottish wildcat is Britain's last remaining wild member of the cat family, and it bears a close resemblance to the domestic tabby cat, but it is more striped and has a bushier, blunt-ended tail marked with a thick black rings. You can see there. Now, confined mostly to the Scottish Highlands, wildcats disappeared from southern England in the 16th century. The last one was recorded in northern England. It was actually shot in 1849. The Wildlife and Countryside Act gives strict legal protection to wildcats and their dens. They are easily confused with feral cats, which are basically domestic cats living in the wild, of which there are about 900,000 in Britain today. Unfortunately, the two species also interbred to give hybrids, which makes it extremely difficult to define the genetic purity of a wildcat. The wildcat has suffered considerable decline in population and is now considered at serious risk of extinction in England. So, fun fact, the Scottish wildcat is the likely inspiration of the mythological Scottish creature cat Seath. I'm not pronouncing that right, I know. A spectral cat that haunts the Scottish Highlands. So what else can we learn about the wildcat? You can see it's just looks like a normal cat. But you see this ringed tail here, a little bit bushier. So they are native to the UK. The head body length averages about 56 centimetres and the tail is roughly 29 centimetres. They have grey-brown fur with dark stripes, thick tail with black rings and a blunt tip. Their habitat is varied. Mostly it's on the edge of moorland with pasture, scrub and forests in Scotland, north of Edinburgh and Glasgow, but not on the islands. In winter, the bad weather drives them down into the more sheltered wooded valleys. They have one litter a year of 3 to 4 kittens, born in May after a 68-day gestation period. They are born without hair and are blind and deaf. Eyes open after 9 days, and they emerge from the den at 4 to 5 weeks old. They accompany their mother on hunting trips after 10 to 12 weeks. Second litters occasionally occur in August. They make their dens in abandoned fox earths, underground dens dug out of ground. We looked at that a little bit in the fox slide. And they also make them in disused badger sets, under tree trunks, in hollow trees, in bracken or among large rocks. They live on a diet of rabbits, hares, small mammals and game birds. So, like we know, their population is in massive decline and they're on the verge of extinction. And it is estimated that fewer than 100 survive, and extinction is actually considered likely, which is really, really sad. So, that brings us to the end of this 3-part series. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you haven't checked out part 1 and 2, I will link those videos down in the description. And I hope you have enjoyed learning about all the different animals in the UK. There are so many more. You're probably thinking, where is this animal? Where is that animal? But maybe I'll do a part 2. Well, you know what I mean. I'm also working on the birds of Great Britain and also the marine animals of Great Britain too. So please look out for those. That'll be really, really interesting, especially those of you who love to look at birds or are really into birds and stuff. So, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this video, found it informative and relaxing. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care and